All right, everyone. This is Ken Hardison with another PILMA webinar. And today we have Brooke Lively, CFA and president and founder of Cathedral Capital out of Texas, where everything's bigger and better. And she specializes in helping lawyers and entrepreneurs turn their companies into profitable business by working with them with revenues up to $10 million. Prior to consulting, she was a full charge administrator of a seven-figure small law firm. Oh, a seven-figure small law firm?
Hey, look, that was just a starting point.
Yeah, but if it's seven-figure, it can't be that small. And she also serves as a receiver in Texas with a special interest in family-owned and operated companies. And she co-authored a book in 2012 on the subject of receivership. And basically, she holds an MBA with a double concentration in investments in corporate. And I can't read that part, so I apologize.
Corporate finance.
Corporate finance, that's kind of important.
Yeah.
Kind of important. But anyway, the big deal is I've had her on a podcast, and we've had her before, and she really knows her stuff. And she kind of helps lawyers on the business side of things because they don't teach that in law school. And you know, it is a business. I know we're professionals, but listen, you got to run it as a business. You owe it to your family, you owe it to your team. You know, you're not in it for charity. You got to, you know, you want to help people, and we do help people, but you got to make a living while you do it. So she helps us with that because that is usually not lawyers' strong part. I found that with doctors and lawyers. Watching the money and planning financially is not one of our biggest attributes or strengths. Well, so today, but today I want to talk about, and we're going to talk about something that we hadn't talked about in a while, Brooke, is the PPP loan and the forgiveness, because our wonderful federal government just seems to be back and forth and not, you know, nobody knows what the hell to do. And so I saw where you were doing something with another group or doing it yourself, and I called you up and said, hey, would you give it to our PILMA people, because you were hitting some points that we really need to know. It comes up in some of our mastermind meetings. It comes up in some of my weekly meetings. We just had a gold call right before this from 1 to 2, and there were some people asking about it, and I said, come to this, because Brooke's going to answer any questions. She's going to talk about it and then answer any questions. So I turn the floor over to you, Brooke.
Well, thanks, Ken. I think, first of all, what I want to say is when you contacted me, you really wanted to give all of your members just an open chance to ask questions. So like, ask questions. We already had one person raise his hand, and we'll get to you in a minute, but I kind of wanted to talk about what I want to cover today. And then y'all tell me what I'm missing, and I will answer questions on the fly. I'll answer questions at any point. But I wanted to do a quick review of what the PPP was. I want to talk about the deductibility of expenses. I want to talk about whether or not you should be running out to get your loan forgiven today. We did have a couple of questions come in before this. One was about how the SBA was treating people that got a PPP and an EIDL. So I'll cover that. I want to talk about the bill that's in Congress today. Right now, there are two bills in Congress, sort of what's happening with that. And then some things that some tax practitioners have said, and I think that's about it.
That's a lot.
Sound good?
Yeah, that's a lot.
I can talk fast, even though I'm from Texas.
I hear you.
All right, let's do a quick PPP review. So this was a program created by the CARES Act. They started issuing these loans, I believe, in April. It was 2.5 times your average payroll amount. Initially, you had 12 weeks to use it to pay for payroll, for rent, for utilities. They extended that to 24 weeks. And then one of the key things I think you need to know is you actually have 10 months from the end of your period before you start asking for forgiveness. So that's a quick overview. Is that quick enough, Ken?
Yeah, when you say end of period, is that the end of when you would have supposed to have spent the money?
Yes, and you can choose either the 12-week or the 24-week. So that's your choice.
So you got a long time.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go in the order that we talked about. But let's talk about that. Like, should you be rushing out to get the loan forgiven? And the fact of the matter is, you've got 10 months. So for most people, actually, let me rephrase. For people who got these loans super, super duper early, they have until probably August just to get forgiveness, actually to start the forgiveness process. So I know there are a ton of people out there who are like, I've got to get this forgiven this year. And if you want to get it off your balance sheet, that's fine. But all it's going to do is mean that you have to start, if you don't get 100% of it forgiven, it means you're just going to have to start paying it back sooner. And it is unlikely that a lot of people's full PPP will be forgiven. And that is because most people also got the EIDL loan, the EIDL. They went for the EIDL loan and they got that EIDL grant. Ken, do you remember the grant? They said there's a $10,000 grant. And people are like, I got $1,000.
Yeah.
What you got was $1,000 per FTE, full-time equivalent employee. So that grant actually gets subtracted out of the amount of your PPP that can be forgiven. So if you got a $100,000 PPP, if you got a $10,000 EIDL grant, which was that random money that got deposited in your account with no notice, you can only get a max of $90,000 forgiven on your PPP. So you will owe money on your PPP. So let's see. What else do I want to talk about running out? Let's talk about the expenses associated with PPP loans. So when they did the CARES Act, Congress thought they were so smart. And those congressmen put in a little thing that said, you cannot issue a 1099-C for the debt that is forgiven. So you guys all know what a 1099 is. Someone works for you, you pay them as a contractor, you send them a 1099. You all get tons of them from your clients every year because you're supposed to file a 1099 if you pay anything to an attorney. So Congress said you can't issue a 1099-C, which would mean that you would have to list the forgiven amount of the loan as income when you come to taxes. The IRS said, not so fast. You may not have to issue a 1099-C, but if you don't issue a 1099-C, you can't take the deduction for any of the expenses that were used to get the PPP forgiven. And that just came out about 10 days ago. We knew it was going to happen, but they came out with guidance. So basically what this means is, let's go back to that $100,000 PPP loan. You're only going to get $90,000 forgiven because of your EIDL. That means that when your accountant does your taxes this year, he is going to just make $90,000 worth of your expenses go away, which ups your net income by $90,000. Are you with me on that, Ken?
Yep. Because you can either do it one way or the other. I mean, basically is if you filed a the 1099-C.
Yep.
Then yeah, or if you don't file it, either way, they're gonna catch you. They got you either way.
They're going to get you either way. And one of the things that's in that bill in Congress right now is Congress is trying to go back and correct their mistake because they didn't think it all the way through like the IRS does. The other thing the IRS said, and this was a biggie, and people were talking about, should we file for forgiveness this year or file for forgiveness next year? If we file for forgiveness this year, that money is going to come out on, if we file for forgiveness this year, that money is going to, that deduction, we're going to lose that deduction on this year's taxes. If we file next year, we'll lose the deduction on next year's taxes. Well, That was the other thing that said that the guidance that was issued by the IRS last week or week before last said, doesn't matter when you get the loan forgiven, you do have an expectation that the loan is going to be forgiven, and therefore the expenses get stripped out in the period in which they were spent. So doesn't matter, everybody on this call, your net income is going to be higher by the amount of your PPP loan. So you need to be talking to your tax accountant. You need to be planning for this. All right, we've got a couple of questions. Do I know anything about getting tax credits for any paid employee COVID sick leave under the PPP Act? So that's part of the CARES Act. That's not actually part of the PPP program. And we aren't actually accountants, so I don't know a whole lot about tax credits for the sick leave. That was a separate program. You can actually go to my website. I don't know it off the top of my head. I do have some information on there. If you go to cathcap.com, and there it says coronavirus, and there's a whole coronavirus section, and there will be a page that talks about that program. Okay, if the amount of your loan was over $2 million, I understand you need to submit form 3510. If you ask for forgiveness for an amount less than 2 million, are you still required to file the form 3510? Man, your people have like in-depth questions.
They're smart.
Holy cow, how big is your payroll a year that you've got a $2 million PPP? I don't know. And if you shoot me your, you can private message me and I will get an answer back to you. How's that, anonymous attendee with the $2 million and the 3510? Okay, so another question. What happens if a business cannot repay its PPP loan? Like a restaurant or other greatly affected and distressed business, can a business file for bankruptcy to avoid these loans? Yes, so there was no personal guarantee. Yep, you can get it dismissed. So just FYI. Okay, Tom got $150,000 idle loan. Good for you, Tom.
So he won't be able, so whatever PPP he got, he's gonna have to, 150's gonna go against it where he can't get that.
Nope. So look, the idle and the PPP are different programs and they're different loans. They're actually different types of loans as far as the SBA is concerned. The idle loan went directly through the SBA, which is not normal. The PPP loan went through your bank. The only place it crosses over is on the idle grant, which is a subset of the idle loan.
Okay, that's a good point.
The idle grant gets subtracted from the amount of your PPP forgiveness. Basically, what the government said, what the CARES Act said was the max amount of forgiveness to which you're entitled is 2.5 times your payroll. Whether you got it as a PPP loan to get forgiven or whether you got it as an idle grant, doesn't matter. Max amount the government's going to forgive is 2.5 times your PP, or 2.5 times your payroll. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We've got a question about what's in Congress, and I'll cover that in a minute. Does that get subtracted from the PPP loan like the 10K you're talking about? No. So the idle loan, which most people was a max of 150,000. We did have a few clients that were Johnny on the spot and applied like the minute they opened the idle loan. They got $500,000. And then the SBA said all the money's going to be gone. So we're taking it down to 150 a person. That is a loan. That is almost like you went to the bank and you got a loan. Like just, you have a loan. It's for $150,000. After a certain amount of time, you will be able to pay it back. It's an amortizing loan, just at a really good rate.
was about a year afterwards when you've had to start paying it back, something like that.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the loan docs.
I'm sure the government remind us.
I feel sure they are. So interestingly, we have had clients, and this shocked me. We've had clients that have been getting letters from the SBA saying, if you want to pay back your EIDL, you can. Like, dude, repayment's not due yet. Leave us alone. So no, your EIDL does not get subtracted from the PPP loan forgiveness. The EIDL loan does not. It is a separate full-on loan.
It's the grant.
Nope, the $150,000 is just a plain old loan.
Right.
The grant gets subtracted from the PPP.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's do some more. Is there another round of PPP? All right, we're getting too many questions about what's in Congress. All right, here there are two bills in Congress. Nobody is happy about them. The Republicans in like November offered a $1.8 trillion bill. The Democrats wanted something bigger than that. Now they're at 900 billion. And Pelosi will not admit that that holding out for more than 1.8 was a bad idea because now they're only going to get max half. Here's the deal. So the head of public affairs at the Consumer Bankers Association, I've gotten to know really well through this whole process. He says that a more streamlined forgiveness application is in there. It will probably only be for loans of 150,000 or less. But basically, if your loan is 150,000 or less, if one of these bills pass, it will be a more streamlined application. Kind of like you can file taxes on a 1040 or a 1040 EZ. There is an easy forgiveness app. Yes, it looks like there's going to be another round of PPP. Here's what we don't know, because let me tell you, they're being kind of tight-lipped about this. I can't find anything anywhere about the details. I suspect that the new round of PPP may have a higher hurdle to get it. So I think
it's be more for restaurants, people that are, it was so easy to get this one. I mean, really, all you had to have is a warm body and sign and enough power, life in you to sign some paperwork or hit the keys.
Yeah, I think the question was, do you think you have a need? Or do you think this is going to impact your business? Do you think coronavirus is going to impact your business? Check.
Yeah.
I think you may have to, and this is total, Ken, and you're obviously on the same page I am. This is total just conjecture, but I think you're going to have to actually prove some kind of need.
Yeah, I think the people that are going to get it are the people that, I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of our Pilgrim members are doing okay. Their problem is not, some of them are having great, their banner years, but the problem is intakes. It's going to affect them down the road. So when they signed that was good faith.
Absolutely.
Has it affected their actual bottom line this year? Probably not. Not now, some of it has, but
right.
Most 95% of them, I'm hearing that our members are having like record year as far as income.
Our clients are too, for the most part. And our clients that are down max like 15 to 20%.
Yeah.
Let's face it, attorneys are not generally in the same bucket as those poor entrepreneurs who own a restaurant.
Well, PI lawyers are a recession proof. I've always said that. Because when things get bad.
I don't know. There aren't a lot of car wrecks happening because no one's out driving.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true.
Okay, so there are a couple of other things that are in this bill. The $300 per week in additional unemployment. If you guys remember this summer and in fall, it was $600 per week. It's now down to $300. There's going to be some liability protection for governments and possibly for employers. The liability that we face as business owners to protect our employees is scary and overwhelming. So just think about that as you bring your employees back, and aid to state and local governments. So does that kind of answer everybody's questions about what's in the bill?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's do some more questions. We received a loan and have asked for forgiveness, but no resolution yet. Since the expenses paid for by the loan are not deductible, increasing the firm's profit for 2020, thereby increasing each partner's taxable income for 2020. What happens if the loan is ultimately not forgiven in 2021? So you'll go back and you'll refile your taxes.
Yep.
You'll just amend them. It's just the way it's going to be. All right, next question. If portion of PPP ends up not being forgiven, will amended 20 tax returns need to be filed? Yep. All right. I called the SBA and asked why I only got 150,000. So Tom, the reason you got 150,000 is because they put a limit on it. They realized after they processed the first few loans that that this program was going to run out of money if they continued to give people a limit of $500,000. So they pulled it down. Max you could get was 150. Can you apply and get multiple SBA emergency loans, EIDL? Is there a limited loan amount for each business? So you can only get one EIDL per emergency. So unless they stop and say, okay, we have coronavirus 1 emergency is over and we're going to declare a national emergency for coronavirus 2, no, you can't go back and get another EIDL. If you have an EIDL that you got for the pandemic and a hurricane hits your office building that you own, yes, you can absolutely go back and get a second EIDL for the hurricane, but it's one emergency loan per emergency. Okay, Tom, you got a lot of questions, dude. All right, recently I called the SBA and they said I could get more than the 150,000 if I applied again. I know. I don't know who you talked to at the SBA, but no, it's a limit for the coronavirus emergency. It's a limit of 150,000. If you got 150, you're maxed out on this emergency. Move your building in front of a hurricane and get another loan. Okay. Not every company receives advance grant for EIDL, correct? We didn't receive anything before the loan itself hit. Was there something wrong? When you applied for your EIDL loan, there was a little button that you checked that said, yes, I would like to apply for the EIDL grant. If you didn't hit that button, you didn't get the grant. And the grant, like I said earlier, is based on $1,000 per FTE, per full-time equivalent employee. So my guess is that you didn't check the button. Are they going to make the expenditures deductible? So this is a big question. And yes, like we really want them, everybody wants them to make the PPP expenditures deductible. To do that, it's going to have to go through Congress. I cannot find confirmation that it is in this current bill. One of the big questions that we're talking about is, do we file? Like, when do we file our taxes? Because what you need to understand is that the deductibility of those expenses does not happen on an IRS form. So one of my big questions was originally, what if, you know, the new Congress comes in and January 20th, they pass a bill saying that those expenses are deductible. How in the world is the IRS going to get new forms out? Because I don't know, do you all remember, what was it, like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, when they did that big tax overhaul? And the IRS couldn't get the forms out until the end of January. So I'm like, oh my gosh, is anyone going to be able to file taxes? And what we realized and found out was that your accountant is going to make that adjustment in his office or her office before it gets sent to the IRS. So they could make the expenditures deductible. They could make that happen retroactively so that you get it in 2020. What that means is, when should we file our taxes? So business taxes are generally due March 15th, personal April 15th. I'm telling a bunch of people, talk to your tax accountant, talk to your tax professional. But depending upon what's happening in Congress, you might want to file an extension, because it might be easier for you to file an extension and not completely resolve your taxes until September than to file your taxes on, January 27th, have a bill pass, and then have to go in that makes the expenses deductible, and then have to go in and amend your taxes. Okay, let's see. Next question. 1.5 million PPP, most used to keep employees and pay rents while closed, and then fully depleted to keep doors open and to cover all expenses once reopened at 50%. Company loss through November is $500,000. Assuming the P&L does not change, company will have $1 million in profit without ever banking the dollars. We will have approximately $300,000 to $350,000 tax liability. Is Congress contemplating any relief or help? Yeah, so the fact of the matter is that's exactly what's going to happen with your taxes, the way things stand. We are hoping that Congress will go back and clarify their intent, because I think we can all agree when they said you cannot issue a 1099-C, their intent was that this money was not to have any tax impact. So
I think if they get anything through Senate, it's going to have it in it, because the Senate looks after the businesses. That's just the way it's been all year.
Yeah,
being honest,
it has been.
It seems like Congress, the House is trying to look after the workers, and the Senate's trying to look after the businesses. That's how they work it out. I might be wrong on that, but that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So we had another person ask, if I'm worried about forgiveness, why not extend as far as possible? Absolutely.
Agree.
Like, extend the forgiveness process, extend your tax filing process. My forgiveness application is pending with my bank and has not been submitted to the SBA. Should I ask for forgiveness this year or 2021? Yeah, it doesn't make any difference. It really makes no difference, because as the laws stand now, the expenses are going to get stripped out. The expenses won't be deductible in 2020 on your taxes. Is there any indication how quickly the SBA will be approving or denying forgiveness applications? So, and I can't remember if it was 60 days or 90 days. I think it was 90 days they have to review. I'm going to be pretty honest here, and Ken, your opinion too. Like, the PPP rollout has not been the smoothest thing ever, right?
You think?
It was kind of a cluster when they rolled it out. There are a lot of banks right now that aren't taking forgiveness applications because the SBA is saying, oh, we're going to, work on, and we're going to change the form a little bit. Some of the back end stuff is not working very well. So I don't know that the SBA is really going to adhere to their 60-day turnaround.
Yeah. And I don't know that you think that they're just going to say anybody got a loan under 50 or under 100, they're just going to say, yeah, we're just going to forgive it. Just fill out this form and just say, hey, without giving all the proof that, hey, we spent it for the deductible stuff and be through with it.
The ones that were under $50,000, the easy form, it's basically an attestation that you spent it the way you were supposed to spend it. So we're pretty much there. It still needs to be rubber stamped. They're trying to get that, it's in the bill right now to move it up to, I think, 150,000. Yeah.
That tells me I'm going to wait to try to get the forgiveness till I can have it easier. I like easy.
I like easy too. And Ken, part of it is some of these things are attached to a bill that needs to be passed by the end of this week, because otherwise we're going to have to shut down the government. it's tied into some government funding. So, you know, fingers crossed that we're going to get some resolution on this pretty soon. All right, so we had a chat question. If businesses got the PPP but no EIDL, is there any harm in going ahead and applying for full forgiveness this year? Or should we wait until the last possible minute to see what Congress does? So the only question is, how big of a PPP did you get? If it's under $50,000, you can use the easy form, go ahead and get it forgiven now. If you want to, it doesn't matter. If you're between 50 and 150, you need to wait. Eric said 150. Okay, so Eric, you got to wait. Let's see what Congress does, because I would hate for you to spend the time doing the application if you can use the easy form. David says the PPP forgiveness is not basically an attestation process. I had to provide redundant and detailed docs proving every single number via Bank of America. So one of the things you need to understand, David, is that actually the banks are the ones that are in charge of gathering the information. And just like when you got the loan, every bank is treating this loan differently. So I was amazed when I looked at loan docs. I looked at 3 sets of, and Ken was one of them, because Ken said, I think you were one of them. No, maybe it was somebody else, but they said the loan docs say this. And I'm like, well, my loan docs say this. And so we went through all of our clients' loan docs. Every single set of loan docs for the PPP was different, including payback time. I mean, everything is different. So Bank of America may have made you jump through hoops that were not required by the SBA, because that's the way their system was set up. All right. What else do we need to talk about? Oh, I want to talk about this. Well, did we cover the question that somebody sent in earlier about how the SBA is treating people who got the PPP and the EIDL, that they're separate loans?
I think
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we got this thing from Rocky about my account told me that extending the filing doesn't really extend my time to pay the tax. That's true. That's in everything. I mean, you still got a duty to pay it, but how do you know what you got to pay? I mean, you might get hit with penalties, and it's not going to be that much. I don't know. I'm not a CPA, you know.
So here's the thing. It depends on your risk tolerance and your CPA's risk tolerance. Usually when you file an extension, you have to pay the tax that you think is due. Some accountants who have a higher risk tolerance will have you pay what you had to do last year. Some will make it kind of a safe harbor amount. Some will make you pay what they actually think you're going to owe this year. So that's between you and your accountant.
Yeah.
So
I'm a risk taker.
I am too.
I'll take the safe harbor.
It's hard to find that accountant that's going to go out on that limb with you, because man, when they put their name on your tax return, they're also putting their license on the line.
Yeah.
So is Congress considering forgiveness of EIDL loans? You know, interestingly, I heard months ago, March and April, there was some discussion that they were going to forgive all EIDL loans under $100,000. I myself made sure my EIDL loan was under $100,000 for that reason, because that was the rumor. We have not heard any of those rumors in the past few months. So no news outlets have reported that that's in the bills that are in front of Congress right now. I haven't heard any rumblings about it. I have not heard that from my friend at the Consumer Bankers Association. So we'll have to see, and we'll have to see. I think a lot of this, and can chime in here, we're getting a new administration. We're still going to have a split Congress. So I think a lot of it is how much people feel like they can, how much negotiation can be done. how this Congress is going to work together with the Biden administration. I think, and Ken, you said it, you said you felt like the House was much more looking out for the individual and the Senate was looking out for the company. I think that's right. I think the White House has been looking out for corporate interest. I think the new administration is going to be looking more for personal.
I agree.
I think that's their audience. That's their base.
Yeah.
So, it makes sense to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it all depends on what happens in Georgia on January 5th.
That's right. If you're in Georgia, you better go out and vote for whatever you want.
Yep.
Don't care. My big thing is I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. I just care that you vote and you participate. And if you don't vote, as far as I'm concerned, you're not allowed to complain.
Yep. That's what I told my group an hour ago. Is if you don't vote, you can't bitch.
That's right. I think those are absolutely tied together.
Yep.
Okay, so there are a couple of other things. Yes, LaShonda says, please vote. Oh my gosh. Hey, Ken, we had somebody that raised their hand like forever ago. Does that person need us? We will call on you if you want. I think you put your hand down. Probably wasn't any blood left in your hand.
Yeah.
Because we made you wait so long. Sorry about that. Okay. A couple of other things. We had an accountant bring this to us, and when we first heard it, we were like, oh my God, that's so cool. That might really work. And it was, some tax practitioners have posited that it might be cheaper to pay back the loan than to get it forgiven because of the interest rate versus your tax rate. And we kept kind of looking at it. We're like, okay, well, it looks like that's right. It looks like that's right. I finally sat down with a CPA and we did the math. And once we got in there, because of the way they treat certain expenses, get it forgiven. It's going to be cheaper. On top of that, you don't have to come up with any cash. So you are going to have to come up with cash for taxes. The cash you'll pay for taxes is less than the cash it'll take to pay back the whole loan. So don't think that getting those expenses to be deductible is worth the cost of paying back the loan. We did the math. All right, Ken, what else do we have? What have we not covered?
I think you've covered it all. I think, but somebody out there might not think that. So if you got a question, pop it into Q&A, and and I appreciate you doing this because, we really hadn't talked about this at Pilma in a while. We've been talking about LSA ads since August. Everybody's been talking about that.
Those work, man. They're huge. I love them.
Yeah. Well, they weren't really good for our people to start with, but now it seems like everybody's figured it out. So now it's a lot more competitive for most of our people.
Yeah.
And we're having to go a little deeper. I've come up with a few tricks, but we're.
Oh, I would love to hear your tricks, Ken. This may not be the forum, but
no.
You bet I'm going to be calling you about those.
Okay. Any other questions?
Guys, I had a whole hour blocked out for this. You got 19 minutes at minimum.
Yeah. Well,
were we really that efficient? Ken, did we really answer all the questions?
You said, somebody said, can you repeat what you said in regards to doing the math in regards to paying back the PPP loan versus the tax rate?
Yeah. Okay. So here is how it was given to us. And hold on one second. If you guys will give me 1 second. Let me pull up my email so I can find the email that I sent to my team that had the actual math in it, because that's going to help. When they brought it to us, the accountant said, here's the thing. You got $100,000 loan. If we take it as a loan, we get to deduct the $100,000 worth of expenses. And so the cost to pay it back would be, you get to collect the $100,000 of expenses, you pay the $100,000 back. The delta is the interest rate, which is like, what, 1.5%, tiny, versus you get the $100,000 loan. You don't get to take the deduction, and you've got to pay, you know, between 20 and 30%. So that, you know, when we started looking at it, we're like, well, yeah, that's great. However, that's not actually how it works out. And let me see if I can find, I got my email open. Let me see if I can search around and find the email that I sent out about this.
Somebody asked why you're looking that up. Can you still apply for idle loan?
Yes, I believe they still have some idle money out there. So go for it. Okay, let me see. I sent that on the 23rd. Okay, I'm getting closer. I promise. It's just going to take me a minute.
Sure.
Any other questions while I'm searching? You know, I think that this has been an incredible opportunity for companies. We really have, getting this kind of funding, I think for a lot of law firms has given them a cushion that they didn't have before. And I think it's enabled some people to do some things that they would have liked to have done that maybe they didn't have the ability to, like really spending on some marketing that may not have been possible before. Have you seen that, Ken? Do you know some people that this opened up some money to be able to go?
No, one lawyer that really didn't need it, but he said, at that price, how the hell can I not take it?
Yeah.
You know, he said, just in case, he said, I put it away for a rainy day. He said, I put it in something that's interest bearing. He said, I'm breaking even. He said, it's there for an emergency. In case things get worse next year, you know. You know, but so yeah, I mean, but it's the cheapest money as I know of getting in the last 30, 40 years.
You know, this money is cheap, and the money's cheap, and taxes are at an all-time low. So, you know, it's an opportunity. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Ken, will it let me share my screen?
I hope so.
All right, let me see here.
Made you code. You should be able to.
It is letting me. Okay, so here's the math. If you got a loan for $100,000, you're going to pay, if you get it forgiven, you're going to get you're going to pay $35,000. If you pay it back, you're going to get it, basically, you would pay $35,000 less in taxes. There is no repayment with the forgiveness. If you pay it back, you have to pay back 102.5. So that includes the interest. So at the end, with forgiveness, you're going to have $65,000 cash on hand. And if you pay it back, you basically will have $32,438. So it is a better deal to take the forgiveness than to pay it back. Okay. There were some people who wanted to know what my email address is. I am happy to give you my email address. In fact, I will put it in the chat in case anybody wants it. Is that okay, Ken?
Yes.
If you have questions, it is brooke@cathcap.com. And I am happy. I read all my own email. I will respond to everybody. It may not happen tonight. I got to go put my Christmas lights up at some point.
Yeah.
All right.
Any more questions? Let's see. We got, see that we don't get a text. I think you already answered that.
Oh, wait, hold on. Can you still apply for an EIDL? We talked about that. Several states are mandating certain industries to close during this crisis, bars, restaurants, fitness centers as examples. Is Congress considering any specific or targeted relief for these businesses? So I think the second round of PPP is really going to be aimed at them. And Ken and I discussed this and we agree. I think you're really going to have to show that there is a need. I think that will be very easy for bars, restaurants, and fitness centers to do. I think it may be harder for professional services companies to do because, you know, we have not suffered in the same way they have. And let me tell you, if you sold anything on the internet, you're going gangbusters. We had a client that did almost 2 million last year on his internet business. He's probably going to do 17 million this year.
Really?
So
I know a girl that just started selling towels in April, and she sold $750,000 worth of towels at $20 a pop.
I'm telling you, if you buy it,
Beach towels.
if you can buy it online, you're going to get really well. Okay. So someone said, if we get forgiveness, we don't get to deduct the expenses we use the PPP loan for. That's true. But are you saying that we also have to pay taxes on the amount of the loan forgiven? You pay taxes, that is one and the same thing, really. You're not going to have to pay tax. You're not going to lose the deduction and pay taxes. You are simply only going to pay taxes because you lost the deduction.
Yeah.
Is that a better explanation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I understand it.
All right. Pamela, does that get it? Are you good? Okay.
All right. Good deal.
All right. No more questions?
No, so you've got the information. Y'all know how to get up with Brooke if you need her. And thank you, Brooke. For
My pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, this was really good. You actually taught me a couple of things. I had forgot about the EIDL loan, to be honest with you. Everybody was so much about the damn PPP. I just really kind of forgot about it, you know.
Well, and I think a lot of people took the EIDL as insurance.
Yeah,
and
they did.
And I think that's a great way to do it, because especially at the beginning of this, and you know, we're kind of at another one of those flex points.
Yep.
We don't really know what's going to happen.
It's going to get worse before it gets better. I can promise you that.
It is going to get worse before it gets better. We don't know how much things are going to get closed down. We don't know how it's going to affect professional services like us. And as great as it is that we've got this vaccine that I think we're waiting to hear today if it gets approved or not. I know Canada approved 2 vaccines today. You know, this was so cool. The New York Times had a thing where you could go through and you put in all this information about yourself, and it showed you where in line you would be for the vaccine and about when you were going to get it. I think they calculated that I was going to get it in May. So if you've got all those people that don't get it until May.
And may I say, as a little plug here, that's why we're going forward with our PILMA Summit in June, because we think everybody will get the vaccine by May and then come down to New Orleans and blow it out.
Woohoo! I go to New Orleans every year for Mardi Gras, and I don't get to go this year. So
yeah.
That's a great opportunity to go down and get some good food and drink a couple of hurricanes.
Yep.
and learn something.
And learn a little bit of something.
Learn a little something.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Brooke. You take care, and we'll be in contact. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right,
Everybody.
everybody, Ken Hardison, until next time, dedicated your success. Thank you.